Imagine dedicating your entire life to building something that experts, investors, and literally the general public just openly laughed at. We're talking about an idea the established industry flat out refused to fund, dismissing it as pure fantasy. Yet, against all odds, this impossible joke didn't just work, it became the very foundation of our entire modern global economy. We are, of course, talking about the airplane.
It really makes you wonder, right? What actually happens when humanity's greatest unsolved problem gets labeled completely impossible by the so-called experts? At the dawn of the 20th century, despite humans spending centuries watching birds and dreaming of the skies, powered flight wasn't just considered difficult, it was treated as an absolute joke. The consensus was pretty much that pure imagination couldn't beat physics.
And to be fair, the barrier to entry was just terrifyingly high. You weren't just solving one neat little problem. Inventors had to juggle 4 massive engineering nightmares all at the exact same time. Generating enough lift to fight gravity, maintaining structural stability in the air, providing continuous propulsion, and, crucially, actually controlling the thing. People literally risked their lives trying to crack this code, leading to some tragic deaths and completely abandoned dreams.
Then, enter the ultimate underdogs, Wilbur and Orville Wright. These guys weren't backed by some massive corporation. They didn't hold prestigious engineering degrees, they were just 2 bicycle manufacturers from Dayton, Ohio. But it turns out, working with bikes gave them a highly unique, practical superpower when it came to physics.
While the well-funded inventors of the day were obsessing over strapping bigger, heavier engines onto wings to literally brute force a machine into the sky, the Wright brothers took a completely different path. See, building bikes taught them a crucial lesson. Raw power means absolutely nothing without balance and control. Throwing a heavy engine on wings is completely useless if the pilot is just acting as a passenger.
So instead of blindly throwing more horsepower at the problem, they got incredibly systematic about it. They basically became scientists. They built rudimentary gliders, constructed their very own wind tunnels, and developed entirely new ways to understand aerodynamics. Their entire goal was to engineer a reliable system for the pilot to actually steer, taking it step by step.
And that methodical focus, it paid off big time. On December 17, 1903, near Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, Orville Wright achieved the impossible. The flight lasted just 12 seconds. That's it. 12 seconds, covering roughly 120 feet. To put that in perspective, that wouldn't even cross a modern football field. It sounds absurd today, but that tiny 12-second hop was world-shattering. It definitively proved that powered, controlled flight was a reality.
After that massive breakthrough, the question suddenly shifted from, is this even possible? To, okay, what on earth do we actually do with this? Now, those early airplanes were incredibly fragile, frankly dangerous machines made out of wood and fabric. But knowing the physics actually worked, that triggered a massive snowball effect. Control systems rapidly improved, materials got stronger, and engine power just skyrocketed.
But here's the thing. The real catalyst for explosive development wasn't commerce. It was conflict. When governments woke up to the military applications of aviation, massive wartime spending during World War I transformed these fragile little experiments into serious strategic technology. Almost overnight, the skies were filled with fighter aircraft, heavy bombers, and eventually, the power to project military might across entire oceans.
The sheer speed of this acceleration is just breathtaking. Think about it. In just a few decades, we went from experimental war machines right into trusted commercial airmail routes and real airport infrastructure in the 1920s. And then, the massive post-World War II leap, the jet engine. Visionaries like Frank Whittle and Hans von Ohain unlocked speeds and altitudes that forever changed how you and I travel today. Take a second and really think about what this meant for humanity as a whole. For our entire history, geography completely dictated our lives. Mountains, deserts, oceans, those were absolute barriers. The airplane totally shattered them. A grueling multi-day ocean voyage from New York to London was suddenly reduced to just a matter of hours. The airplane quite literally shrank our globe.
And the impact reaches so far beyond just saving some travel time. Our entire modern economy completely relies on the ability to move high-value goods and people across the planet overnight. We're talking rapid medical supply deliveries, fresh food shipped year-round, mass international tourism, and cross-continent business. Aviation essentially became the physical internet of modern globalization.
What started as one highly mocked idea spawned this sprawling, deeply interconnected ecosystem. This wasn't just a cool new vehicle. It was the birth of literally thousands of industries. From airports and air traffic control to massive manufacturing hubs, logistics, specialized insurance, and flight schools. Millions of global jobs grew straight out of those 12 seconds in the air.
It's a perfect case study in the power of compounding innovation. It works almost like a giant flywheel. Better designs improve performance, which then attracts serious investment. That money accelerates the next wave of research, which eventually scales manufacturing to lower costs. Through this relentless cyclical engine, a technology that was once considered physically impossible becomes safe, ordinary, and incredibly cheap.
And you know what? That cycle of innovation hasn't stopped for a second. Today, the industry is entering yet another massive transition. We're actively developing sustainable aviation fuels, electric and hybrid aircraft, autonomous flight systems, and we're even integrating deep space tech into everyday aerospace engineering. We are pushing those boundaries all over again.
But bringing this whole thing back to where we started, the absolute most important takeaway here actually isn't about aerodynamics or engineering at all. It's about belief. The Wright brothers didn't succeed because the world was cheering them on. They succeeded because they persisted through exhausting, frustrating experimentation when absolutely zero certainty existed.
We really have to remember that the world rarely recognizes a revolution in real time. At first glance, the greatest inventions almost always look, well, completely ridiculous. The critics will always yell that it's too expensive, it's too fragile, it's way too complicated, or just too early. The first version is usually pretty unimpressive, and the doubters are always loud.
Yet every single modern aircraft flying above us today is this stark, multi-ton reminder that progress requires tackling problems one step at a time. The future always begins with an idea that looks totally unrealistic to the establishment. It just requires someone willing to endure the mockery, look at the physics, and just keep testing.
So, as we look around at the absolute cutting edge of science and technology today, we really have to pause and ask ourselves, what impossible idea are we laughing at right now that is destined to become tomorrow's absolute normal? What unbelievable concept is out there, just waiting for someone to prove it can work? Think about it, and keep your eyes open for the next impossible breakthrough.